Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Really Charlie podcast. And today's guest is my friend, my favorite basketball player from Acushnet, Massachusetts, and Fairhaven High School. I love it. I love it. This is one of my favorite players at Fairhaven High School, and I know I'm going to get some people mad, but hey, you can't punch me through the screen. This is not cartoons. what what's going on, Michael?
Not too much, my friend. How's things?
Same old thing, and I am glad, you know, that we connected because I was going to be off for the whole summer, and I just there's no way I can let a podcast go by when you're the guest, because it's I enjoy every single podcast that we have done, and but this one's a little bit more special, and that may not be your opinion, but it's mine. This one's a little bit more special than the other ones, only because I see a goal of yours almost at its completion, and that's your first book,
Mm.
and that kind of means a lot to me. So,
Means a lot to me too, because I'm not sure anybody knows our history to this, but you are the onus to this, right? So there's a little bit of ownership coming from on your part because you put the bug
wow.
in my ear. You were the nudge that started all of this. Now, from my end, it's a long time in coming because
Mm.
that is, I think, that was the second podcast we did together, Charlie. We did with Jimmy Colbert and David Lato were on, where you
Wow.
mentioned that, and I sort of, I had it hit me in the back of the head, like, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this. And you and I've talked privately. We've talked on podcasts about sort of where I am, and I ran my mouth about where I thought I would be. Geez, I didn't realize it would be this kind of thing. I really didn't. Um, a lot of this has been, forced on myself where I kind of reposition the story, well, not even the story, but just the writing and the direction I wanted it to go. And
Hmm.
that's taken a long time to get there. So yeah, I can see the light. And as far as where the finish is, I am mid my second or third or fourth, I forget, listening sessions at this point. So that's another process I'm going through. And that's really one of the more important edit sides that I go through with this is just having the opportunity to listen to it, where I can pick out some things and I get some separate voices. So it's taken a little while, a couple more steps to go through this summer. But yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
One way or another, it's happening.
that's so good to hear. And I mean, I'm glad I can be the initial push, and but there's no doubt in my mind, especially with some of the things that you already come out with, and these prequels to your book. I don't know if anybody could see it. I should have took a picture of it. But the best thing I like about this is, Michael, that looks like you, bro.
Yeah, it's funny how my wife and I went through different versions of that, right? Just trying to figure out what looked right. And so, yeah, there are some things that are very similar that resemble me at some point, and
Mhm.
that was sort of by happenstance. That wasn't something that I focused on, but it was just trying to figure out. With the prequel was something that I wanted to do. In the hopes of just getting some attention on what I was doing, and I could use that as a vehicle. And the front cover, was a little bit of a challenge. The back cover had some things to it that I wanted to actually demonstrate. And yeah, I just think that I think it came out well. Exactly what I wanted it to do. It's created some conversations with people, Charlie, from people that I had loose contact with. We've gone over this a couple of times, you and I online.
Mhm.
I'm hearing from people, and I'm hearing stories that they tell me that they remember about some people I grew up with. And to be honest, I've forgotten about some of this stuff. I have a pretty good memory, but it's sort of locked in on certain things as I've been writing. But their stories about some things, which are independent really of what I'm trying to write and trying to communicate,
Yeah.
has been really cool to hear, and it's created some um, obviously some conversation in our home about what I heard and who I'm hearing from, and it's been very enlightening, and it's been great to hear from people. And that is one of the byproducts to all of this, which has been really nice. And I know I've communicated that to you, and as we've kind of gone through this daily or weekly, um, it's been very fun to go through that. As much
Yeah.
as the difficult side I've had with trying to communicate and write some of this myself, those other people that I've heard from,
Hmm.
kind of gone out of their way to reach out, has been really nice.
Yeah, that's just the conversations that you have, um especially from some of those people that kind of sparked a few of the stories in the book. It just it's just good to hear. But it also, what it's going to do is going to plant another seed in your head, and another seed that probably going to grow another story for you,
Hmm.
and perhaps another book. So I just, I like the fact that I continued to write after the first book, and now I look now on a weekly basis is, what am I start up now? The stories and creations are just so, they're just nonstop, and I just I think that's going to happen with you, only because your first book is very, very deep, um, and in my opinion, it's not going to be deep enough for you, and you're going to write another one.
One of the things that's come out of this, and I've already started to create this, which is, I have some stories, Charlie, that I wrote that are not included in the book.
Hmm.
There are some stories there that I have that I just didn't have room. I couldn't figure out how to put it in timelines right. So I have that ready. I'm not sure it's another book. It's something I'm going to try to do with some, as far as some promotion for the memoir when it comes out. Some additional things and some bundles I want to do with the prequel and the memoir, things like that. So I have those. But to your
Yes.
point, it has created this situation where I never thought I would be in this position as far as being able to create anything
Hmm.
on this end. And I think that's part of one of the fights I've had is I continue, I continue to go down this road where I doubt myself on a daily basis with this stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
and
was getting
that's
ready to
been
say that.
yeah, that's been weird. Where I thought I would start to gain some confidence in this or in myself, and it's just doubting. I'm sort of bumping into the world of publishing, the
Hmm.
world of writing and all that stuff, and I find myself sort of feeling that pressure on where I am and what I'm doing, and um, I certainly don't question the story that I have written because
Yeah.
as I've mentioned elsewhere, it's done. Right,
Hmm.
I have it. There's really no more that I can write. It's just really just fine tuning some of this, and it's going to take a little while. And I put myself again in this position to do those things, but the story's done, and I not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that as far as the writing goes. What I'm
Yeah.
concerned with, and I know you've heard, and I've mentioned this elsewhere, is that this is pretty deep. I've gone in a direction, and I put myself in this position, and I've questioned. Right, I'm just trying to figure out how to make sure people are getting communicated correctly, as far as what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to write.
Yeah. It's I just think that it's a deep story, and a story that could clearly and easily be a documentary, in my
Mm,
opinion, right? Um, Hold on, I don't know why that comment's up there. Um, the Mike, I just want to put that out just for a
okay.
few seconds.
Yep.
The the it can be a documentary, it can be a movie, um, and especially one that I would gladly like to watch and see. You know, we have so many different things that we had watched over the years. Um, and your story and bits and pieces that I have seen is clearly a story that I seen on the big screen, right? And I just can picture that, especially like one thing about you is your description, the way you picture, write and put a clear picture in my head to see where you're at. Um, the one story, and it's not my favorite, but I like the fact that the story you was talking about with your dad and running behind the car and so
Mhm.
on and so forth. That is like a cool. I mean, that's almost like a. I could put that like the first scene in a movie, of
Mhm.
your movie. It's just that picture right in itself, and just started off like that.
It's
And
funny
then go
because you mentioned that story, and I mentioned this someplace on another podcast where, or I came back to it as far as writing goes, where my father doesn't remember that story,
mm,
and he and I had a discussion about that, and I sort of went over as far as, again, I'm not positive where the time. I think I know because it was a busy time in one summer. I was doing a whole lot of things, and my father, again, sort of thinking outside the box on almost everything. It felt like, but I remember that, and that was, again, you're a 15, 16-year-old kid,
mhm,
and you're about to go do something, and when you're doing it, and I remember at that time with my dad, always trying to find out and trying to do something where your competition is not doing that. And
mm,
so those were the edges that my dad was looking for always. And I would jump in with both feet. Okay, we're gonna go to this town and we're gonna go find this road and we're gonna go do this. And so we do it.
yeah,
And it was, I knew none of my competition was doing those things. And I thought that, again, I'm looking for the edge. I'm looking for, how do I get better? How do I create that kind of confidence where I know my competition's not doing those things. I know I'm better prepared, and I know the work that I'm putting in. So it was, again, as I mentioned, it came from an article that we had seen in Sports Illustrated or Sport Magazine way back in the day, where
yep,
some athlete was doing that. Somebody decided that, okay, we're going to go do this. And it may have been something that was just, oh, it's a joke, go measure your speed as far as chasing a car. Um,
mhm,
and I don't tell anybody I had done that. My friends are around, and I have kids. I have friends in school and stuff. And it was again, I think it was the summer before I go to Holy Family that we did that. And I was doing a whole lot of things that summer. It was just a busy, busy, crazy summer, and that was one of the things that we just did. And we don't tell anyone, we don't tell any of our neighbors, we don't tell anybody that we went out and did this, but we did.
yeah. It's maybe doing all those things that appear to be um different, or um maybe it's your anticipation to go into that big school and
Mm.
being coached by that that giant of a person. And that's my feeling on him, or perception that you had of the coach at Holy Family. And I just think that the stories are tremendous when we talk about that school. And I think that you were doing all those things because this is where you can prove your worth, and to another level. And that's just my opinion.
No, I don't
Um,
think Charlie, I don't think you're wrong there, because there was that doubt in my head that I wasn't ready. And
mm,
I mentioned that, we sort of went over that a little bit when we had when we were on the podcast with Jimmy Colbert. I wasn't ready that summer, and I went through this, really, it was painful for a period of time, because I was transitioning from, playing at Ford Junior High School and doing well there, and now I'm going to go play at a high school at a Division I schedule, and I have to be ready.
mm,
And I wasn't. And I doubted myself all the way through until I started to see some things and being able to, again, trying to find something at that point where I was going to be different, that I could do something that other players weren't doing. And part of that was really getting in good shape, and
yeah,
just doing stuff. And skill wise, I just got so much better. I became that much more efficient as far as what I was doing. Never mind after that season playing for Mr. Nebriga.
Mm.
As you and I have talked, I was a much better player coming out the other side, going to play for Jim Tavares and the buddies in those
Yeah.
tournaments. I was a much better player. I could do a lot of things. I became an asset, and that's something I always wanted to do. Was I wanted to be able to do everything. I didn't want to create an excuse for any of the coaches I played for to take me off the court.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. And so, that was a big thing. And that's sort of, going down the line with the youth games, same situation. I'm playing with it, those guys that I'm playing with, they're going to be high school All-Americans. We're all young guys,
Yeah.
excuse me, but it was the same thing. I had to find my way. What could I do that I could help? Is it something, can I play defense? Can I do this? Can I do that? So again, coming out of Holy Family with playing for Mr. Nebriga that one season, I was a much better player. I could just do a lot more things than I could going in. And part of me, I could still score. I mean, I knew that. I know I could get the ball in the basket, but it was those fine things of, you have to play defense, Mr. Nebriga, or you're not going to get on the floor. Don't turn the ball over. And I'm not handling the ball. Jimmy Colbert's handling it, but things were sort of going through me. And as a freshman, things are going through me. He was like, you'd be kidding me. But it was. The offense was going through the wing side of the offense into our big guys. We had two guys, 6'6", 6'7". The ball goes to them first. I didn't know how to pass the ball inside. So it was those kinds of things that I had to learn, and that led on, down the line as far as me just being a really good team player. I was just starting to round into that, and it was just kind of those final points that he taught me. And as I mentioned before, I got yelled at all the time.
Yeah.
I get yelled at all the time. And one of the things he would be frustrated with me was when I would miss a shot and I would get frustrated. And his point, and I think I have this in the book somewhere, where, Michael, you can't make them all. And I'm like, wait a minute. My father told me I should be making them all. And I tried, right? So that was just one of those things where it was just me. And I had high expectations for myself and my ability to perform. So yeah, I think you're right. Going to that school and in that tradition and being involved with that, I took that on as a heavy responsibility that I didn't want to fail there.
Yeah, it's definitely when you kind of do roll call of the names, and whether it's your teammates or people before you or after you, it's just a tremendous roll call when it coming from that institution, because it was an institution. There's so many different things that came out of that school. When you think about the area and the people that have come out of there, whether a leadership role, community role, whatever it may be, it's tremendous. They held a lot of titles, different titles in the community coming from that school. And still, to this day, they're still making a mark as being mentors to all the mentees throughout the area. I want to give a shout out to Willis Mack, my man, New Bedford Votech, All-American. This kid is amazing. I can't wait until he shares the camera with us on the Really Charlie podcast. But thank you, and thank you everybody listening to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I really truly appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way and helps us out. Michael, when I want to go back to the very first hour, first minutes of your book, right? And so before that, was that day of you starting to type the book up, was that set in stone, or you just sat there and then started? Was it?
There was sort of this deliberation in my head for a while of what to do. And I think the first time I sat down, I had gone through this thing, Charlie, where okay, I'm going to create an outline. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I did those things in time. But when I started doing this, I started really going down, and I had this thought in my head to really just do what something had, we had mentioned about the basketball stories and trying to figure out what that was. And it really, Charlie, I just sat at a keyboard and I let it spill out of my head. That was one, liberating to a certain extent, but it was also creating this thing in my head like, those are great stories and that feels good to me. How much more can I do with that? And the outline that I had, I was trying to figure out words and pages as I was going and making sure I was covering this. And I'm like, again, it's important. Those things were important to me, but I don't really know who really is going to care about that. And so I fought that. But there was really no sort of grand plan. I was at a keyboard and I was just typing and just kind of going through this. And I think, and my wife and a couple of other people saw the first stages of this. And there were a couple of things that came forward to where it is now as far as that structure. But yeah, it was not any great plan. I didn't know any better. I was just sort of just letting things spill out of my head. And that was a bit of a challenge because I didn't know how to kind of rein it in. And I was doing a calculation at one point, and with the numbers of pages and words were just getting completely out of control. So I sort of, within a year or so, I think I shifted because again, I didn't know any better. I mean, I'm just sort of just doing this. And my process has gotten better, but it's still to the point, Charlie, where, something comes to me, I have some note pages that I follow and I'll drop it in there and I'll come back to it and try to develop it. Does it fit someplace? Does it make sense? Have I, part of what I wanted to be careful here with, and this is sort of the fine points with this, is I just want to make sure I haven't said it before in the book and not being redundant, those kinds of things. So yeah, it was weird that I had to go through this and trying to figure out what's my process. How do I define some of this stuff as I go? And I think that was one of the struggles I had with as far as timing goes, where I really sort of fought myself over, well, this doesn't make sense. And I'm, again, sort of trying to legitimize what I'm doing in my head as I went. And that was, that was a challenge. I feel better about it now. But back then I didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I tried to read and follow things and pay attention to certain things. And I mentioned to you in the past where, something would come to me, I'd get it, I'd write it as quickly as I can. I think you saw some of those things.
Yeah.
And, and that was nice. I'm not even sure I kept some of that stuff as I went. I think I did, but those were so long ago, Charlie. And I will share something with you, which has been really, really interesting and a little frustrating because I've taken so long with this. And I said this to my wife just recently. My voice changed as I was writing, which is bizarre. I didn't anticipate that. I can almost pick out things that as I have gone, and again, it's morphed into something, but I can pick out things that I wrote in my early stages. But now what I'm writing feels different. I'm not saying better or worse. It just feels different, and it feels like it's a different voice. The stories are the same. Where I'm trying to direct this is the same, but it does, in my view, feel different.
Well, it could be a stage of, just think of it like this, that it's a stage of maturity, right? And everything in a book matures, or it goes in reverse. It matures and then immatures. If that makes any sense. Lack of just a lack of a word in my part that to describe that, and it's life. It's a perfect example of life, or symbol of life. There's nothing, no ifs, ands, or but about it. It's life. And so as your voice changes in it and at different stages, man, it's part of life. And just keep with it, keep going. I can't even well, how can I say this? All right, I'll say it. I already put the word favorite on your book, right? Because I know what's going to come out of it. I know what's in your mind, what you're going to talk about and explain, and I can clearly say right out, just put a stamp of approval, favorite, as far as Charlie Perry, because I know the story is going to be amazing. I talked with our mutual friend Marvin Speller, and his book coming out, should be out next week sometime. But it's and I already know how deep that's why I keep in contact and conversations with both of you, because it's you guys are just, the people I want to be around. And I just want to say that, mom and dad raised a great man, and you were able to maintain everything that they have taught you. And a shout out to Rita, your wife, because I know and heard you talk about, maybe you're driving her crazy or what, 50 million questions, or maybe she's just telling you, giving you a stamp of approval, but then, a few days later, you're asking her pretty much the same thing again.
So let's make it clear. It's very clear that I drive her crazy. So there's no debate, there's no debate there at all.
The so this where can we find, where are we gonna find your books? Where are we gonna find them?
So my plan is, well, the prequel is out, and I went down and did this more organically than I had wanted to, and
Yeah.
and one of the reasons why, and again, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? The size of it doesn't meet a whole lot of qualifications through the publishing and through Amazon and things like that. So it's available. So that book is available through Amazon. It's available through my wife's eBay page. I can supply all those links.
Yes.
The memoir is I'm going to go formally, right? So I'm still going to use the publisher that I use for that particular book, to have some things that I, again, want to make sure people get. But I'm going to go through Amazon on the KDP side. So it's going to be print on demand there. Can do the ebook through there. I'm going to make sure I have a link to do something through the digital side to get it to the rest of the other outlets that I was able to get them through so Apple and Google and those places, to make sure it's available there. And again, I had some restrictions on that because of the size of the book, didn't meet some qualifications. Again, didn't know what I didn't know. So I'm anticipating it to be available on a really broad basis, much different than the prequel. But there will be some things that I'm going to do. We've had some discussion amongst ourselves about potentially creating a website where people can purchase it directly from there. So there may be an opportunity there too. So I'm trying to make it I want to make it as broad as I can. So the other book, which is really the development through my wife, which is Dewey. We're going to try to do the same type of thing, making sure it's the right length, make sure it's the right size. And if it doesn't meet, then I'm still going to have it through a website that people can purchase it. If I can do it organically through Amazon, again, to purchase that side of it, I'm going to do that too. So, I'm thinking prequel's out. The memoir will be out November, December of 2025. Dewey thereafter. So you're looking at springtime with at least 3 items kind of floating around to go out and purchase in various formats and various bundles that we can create. And again, trying to create the path of least resistance when people can buy this. So I anticipate that's where it's going to be. And, just try to find some advertising. I've been able to do some things with some groups. The publisher that I went through the prequel, I think I sent something to you that they're going to do some promotion for the prequel on their site, which is cool of them to do. I kind of got myself involved with that and wanted to create those avenues. And again, not so much for that particular book, but trying to get some visibility and create some relationships actually for the memoir and those things. So as much as I can, to push it and make it available and keep talking about it and getting people involved with it. So it's going to be available as broad as I can make it within, sort of where you and I have been as far as the publishing side of things and getting things out there.
Awesome. If you want to, I highly recommend some of the templates that are on KDP. Makes it easier, and it kind of guides you along where some of the ingredient, some of the content that needs to be added, it will definitely kind of give you an alert that you need to add more, like pages, or this can't be a binded book, or so on and so forth. So the templates are pretty good. Um, so when you have a chance, just give that a shot also.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any issue as far as content goes, as far as length and size,
Yeah.
because I'm at 192 pages at this point, 190
Yeah.
pages. So
Yeah.
it's good size. It's a
Yeah.
pretty dense manuscript at this point. So, the other thing that I'm doing, which I'm going to include you in, I hope, is the advanced reader copy, which I want to do by, which I'm getting out by August. So I think I
Mm-hmm.
have 10 or 12 people that are involved with this. Again, another avenue that I had not anticipated to go down, but I think just to kind of get some opinions out there, hopefully get some good quotes on this, get some good feedback from some people that I've reached out to. So I'm doing that. I'm going to go do that through the same publisher that I did the prequel for, because they've got a format that actually looks pretty nice to do this on. So it'll come back pretty clean. And I'm, by August, that should be pretty much done. From my end, I have some things I want to do, but that should be pretty clean at that point. And just, that advanced thing, I hope within, 30, 40 days, I get some feedback from some people, in whatever format people feel comfortable in. And again, if people feel comfortable giving me feedback. So
Yeah.
that's something cool that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, count me in. I gladly do that. It'll be an honor. And I'll try my best to get my I don't know, my fondness of Michael Semiao. I gotta kind of leave that out of there. Just kind of critique it pretty much like I never knew you, and that's what I want to do.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
So the I've been around a lot of different authors these past 2 months, and they have clearly been inspirational, and it put me at a point right now that I'm looking to create so much more. And so what I'm getting at is that I want you to kind of go to a book, signing somewhere in your area,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of veg out and listen to everybody. Um, kind of absorb all that. You know, it's good that people watch during the book signing, because they know you're not the author and they think you're just someone like them, but you are truly an author. And sometimes you can hear some things that you when you listen, and then you're able to learn from another author's venue or a product. And I've been doing that with a lot of stuff with poetry and just listening, and I learned so much. I heard a critique of an author not too long ago, maybe about a month ago, and it was so true. But I said it in my head. This guy was critiquing the poet, and I actually said it in my head, but I wasn't, brave enough to say anything. But it was so true, and then that other gentleman saying it exactly what I said, I was like, wow, I'm glad that I wasn't wrong on this, and we both may be wrong, but at least I have someone that supports my opinion of the author, which happened to be a good and bad, but mainly good, and I was so happy that someone else was thinking the same thing.
I hadn't
So
thought of that, so I'll definitely take a look at, because a couple of smaller bookshops in Andover Center that I'll see what they're doing as far, because one of the things I thought of was with the memoir, getting that book in those particular positions to sell. So I had some thoughts on that type of thing. So I will take a look and see if they're having any book signings and having any discussions, and I'll have kind of stick my nose into your point and see how that looks.
yeah, it's a fun thing. Get a get a cup of coffee or tea, whatever you drink, and kind of chill out and relax, um, and just observe the basketball, right? People may believe it's just a game, right? somebody like you and I, it was something so much more than that, you know. Um, with me, it was something that kind of kept me out of trouble, almost like a big brother, you know. If I was playing basketball, chances are I wasn't going to get in trouble, and the sport kind of just did that for me throughout my life. Um, and it was so important to me that I treat it as a relative, if that makes any sense. I loved it, cared about it, and um, but one of the most regretful, not regretful, but the most missed thing in my life is basketball. You know, after two knee surgeries, I really, truly, um, I, I can't play anymore, and that bothers me. It really bothers me. I think it actually is stopping me from coaching too. Um, I kind of think, that I would get something that I miss through coaching, and it just makes it worse. It makes it worse for me that I'm not playing. Um, so tell me the importance of basketball in your life.
Well, the importance of basketball really comes down to, for me, was there was this pretty heavy line of identity.
Hmm.
Without it being there, there was not this ability to sort of, and I don't want to say exist and sound overly dramatic, but there were certain things that I sort of looked to as part of my day. And if I didn't include that, something was missing.
Hmm.
And, it was just, I just had this line of me that certain things meant a lot to me as far as what I was doing. And it created this identity for me through different teams and different, if it was through the media at that point, as far as articles in the newspaper, pictures in the newspaper, and getting noticed, because you're a kid, right? So there are certain things that sort of align with you where people start to identify you with certain things, and that side of your ego starts to get stroked a little bit. And so you sort of saw this, excuse me, this formula of, okay, 1 and 1 equals 5. And you sort of drove to that. But then it changed, right? Then it changed from that level of people paying attention where all of a sudden you have success, right?
Hmm.
You're able to kind of climb certain ladders as you go. Certain things that are put in front of you, you're able to kind of you can deal with them. You can figure out success through that. So it sort of became this, again, not to sound dramatic, it sort of felt like this drug to a certain point where I would play a lot, I would practice a lot, I could see success with these things. And some of those, Charlie, some of those successes are very private
Yeah.
and no one's there, right? My dad might see it. And so, but that's it. Some neighbors that are part of this that would come and shoot with me would see improvement and express that to my dad about, geez, he's really improved. And so those were the things that I enjoyed. And again, it's sort of like this drug. You just kind of do things, you get better at things. You go to a park and play, you can see you all of a sudden your, players that you were struggling with at some point, you're much better than them. And
Hmm.
that was just really kind of this fulfilling prophecy as you go. And the other side of it, Charlie, I learned that I love to compete.
Yeah.
That was the big thing for me. And just play hard, play hard, play clean, and we'll see what happens on the other side. That I really enjoyed. I'll
Hmm.
share a story with you.
Sure.
I'm not sure if this is in the book or not. I'm 16 years old. I think I'm again in between Holy Family and Fairhaven. My
Yes.
family and I go to see a tennis pro that my dad had gone to college with at Brooklawn Park. And we arrive late, his match is over, and I'm looking down from the tennis courts, where the old tennis courts at Brooklawn Park, down to the basketball courts. And I can see a couple of guys that I know. So I sort
Yeah.
of wander over. I'm not dressed for basketball. but within half hour, I'm running up and down. And it was just sort of one of those things that was just cool to have. They recognized me. There were guys that played on the buddies teams that I knew from Bishop Stang. And so come play. So I'm playing for a half hour. I'm drenched and I'm loving it. But those are the things I just great. Someone recognizes you, come play. And it's just this sort of, again, this organic thing that just happens. And I went home a mess because I was dressed in tennis clothes and I ruined them. I ruined my sneakers. I ruined everything.
Yeah.
But that was fun. That's what I love to do. That was someone sees it. Someone starts, your name comes up about something and you go play and you play hard for 45 minutes up and down, just playing pickup, when to stay on, that whole thing. I love that stuff. But that was, the byproduct of the work I was doing at home, the stuff I was doing through different basketball camps or stations that I built for myself that I had designed with my dad. So it was those things, and that's what it meant, right? It just meant those kinds of things where you could see some level of accomplishment. And not to be, again, dramatic, I'm not really sure kids could see that, as far as what they were doing, right? People were involved with different things and had their own interests, but to be able to kind of project that as you go in my world, right? In the world that I wanted to be part of, that I wanted people to know who I was. And you could start to see that with basketball. Again, story kind of blows up from there as far as kind of dealing with that. And that's really where the story is in the book. And that success leads to some really difficult times and trying to deal with those things. And again, I'm a kid, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, through college. Some of that stuff was hard. And, as I've mentioned elsewhere, at this point, most of that story, only one person knows besides me, and that's my wife. And she didn't know it at the time. I've told her, Charlie, in the last 10 years about all of this. And so I'm hanging on with these things for a while. She didn't know. And I'll share a story that she told me that when we started dating, she didn't know of anyone that would go home and practice the way I practiced. She knew a lot of good athletes. She knew a lot of people that were successful in sports. She goes, I didn't know anybody that went home and did the things you did.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I couldn't believe it that you were spending that kind of time. And yeah, some of it's crazy. Some of it's just out there, but that's the stuff I enjoyed. I could see the end of it. I could see the success coming from that.
That extra time, was it taught by someone else, or it was your self-motivation, or self-determination? Was it your self-determination to practice after practice? Or did someone teach you to do that?
I sort of saw it as a means to an end. I knew the time I was putting in. I could see it when I would go play somewhere. So I mentioned that going to play at a park. Yeah. I could see it. I knew where I was as far as my ability because the time I was putting in. So again, it's that equation. You see it, you do these things, you have some success, you keep doing it. There's no way around it. And I had this thing mentally or emotionally that I needed that. I needed that time. I needed the time to put in, to practice that much, take that many shots, run that many miles, run sprints in the street, all that stuff. I just needed it. And again, it's a weird thing that you kind of go through as a kid, but I just enjoyed the time. I was by myself usually. My dad was around, paying attention and helping me on certain things, but it was really on me that was doing those things. I didn't have anybody else. And that's sort of what I liked. It was on me. I didn't have to rely on someone to come motivate me. I was pretty self-motivated on with that. And, my friends, as I mentioned, stories that I've heard from, my friends would hear the ball bouncing from, 2 streets away and knew where I was and knew that it was me. And so I didn't need the motivation. I just knew as time went on, that was going to lead to success. Now, I don't know if putting in that time and I don't have success, I don't know what happens, because there is always that kind of thin line with me was, okay, if you put all this time in and you fail, okay, how do we fix that? Yeah. I don't really run into that. Again, I'm not perfect, but there was that thing where hours on end, shots up in the air, I could see the success and the time that was going into this stuff was just something I really enjoyed. I looked forward to, couldn't wait to get home from school some days, shooting in the rain, shooting in the ice, shooting in the snow. That's what I was doing. And yeah, a level of kind of crazy, but I just enjoyed it. Just enjoyed trying to figure out. The other side of this, Charlie, is, and I'm not sure where it comes from, but I just enjoyed to play as a kid, to run around. And when I found that sport where it was by myself, I didn't turn it off. I just didn't.
That's good. The you make a transition from middle school to two different high schools. Um, Talk about the transition from high school to collegiate at Bryant. Because at some point you were telling me you were playing tennis at Bryant.
I wanted to. I didn't play there. I wanted to.
Oh, okay. All right. My mistake. Okay. But that transition collegiately, and you playing, how was the experience? Talk to me about that. Because I truly don't know about it.
Yeah, that experience is a little mixed, right?
Yeah.
Coming in, so the year before I go to Bryant, their school or that team was ranked in the top 10. At one point, they were ranked top 4 in the nation. So they're coming, they're loaded. When my class comes in 80, there's 2 other players from Connecticut that are in the 1980 class that have been recruited. A couple of guys have graduated. One kid doesn't return to school. So we have a pretty good team. We have a college All-American, Ernie DeWitt, who that following year got drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers late in the draft, but he got drafted as a pro.
Nice.
Ernie could play. So the transition was you're playing with bigger players. Let me go back a second. That summer, the Bryant coach, Leon Drury, had set up the opportunity for me to play in pickup games in Rhode Island. And I'm playing with Bruce Campbell from Providence College. I'm playing with Billy Easton from Providence College and a bunch of Bryant alumni.
Yeah.
Well, this was eye-opening because all of a sudden I'm dealing with Bruce Campbell, who was 6'9", 6'8", left-handed, handled the ball like a guard. Just a really good player. Good guy. He was just big. It's like, so all of a sudden I'm dealing with bigger people, right? Basketball spaces aren't there anymore that I'm used to in high school. I've not played with anybody of size and skill like that. So again, you got to find your way. And that sort of translates to when I go to Bryant and, preseason, you're playing in pickup games with those guys. We had a couple of big guys on that team too, really talented people. And again, positioning myself over, all right, where am I going to be an asset here? And so transition is bumpy. 1, because of that. 2, I get injured. I get injured pretty bad 2 years later, 1983, and hurt my left foot. Charlie, as I've talked a lot about this, I'm still dealing with that foot today. Right? It just didn't heal right. It was probably broken. Treatment went sort of weird as far as that goes. And that was coming off of a really good preseason for me where I was in really good shape. I showed some flashes of things I could do, and then I get hurt. 4 minutes into the first game?
Wow.
And it's really bad. But I can sort of play. So that game when I got hurt, I don't come out. I come out for about 2 minutes, and then I'm put back in, and I'm in the whole game, just kind of dragging my foot around. And so that sort of clouds that transition where I have a hard time. I had a hard time with how I thought I was treated with that injury, and not to go long on this, but you sort of realize at that point, again, this was a Division II school. This is not a big time school, but I sort of felt like a piece of meat at some point where I was being asked to practice where I thought, just give me a few more weeks and I'll be fine. Yeah. And I wasn't given that opportunity. And so I had a really hard time dealing with playing basketball anymore. It gave me a really sour taste. I continue to play. I continue to get playing time. I play pretty well. Foot's still not right, but it really soured my time there playing. And won't share too much because I want to save this for some of the story that I've written.
Yeah.
But it was hard, right? The basketball stuff, the academic stuff sort of got mixed in with some of these things, and I had a hard time with it. And there's some other things here that go on that I actually haven't written, which I'm not probably going to talk about here either.
Yeah.
Which is really personal. That the transition, again, my transition physically was okay. My skill wise, I got better while I was there. I got to participate in some things where I was not the smallest guard we had, but we had some pretty good point guards and other guards around. Charlie, my coach saw that I could shoot it. He played me at the 2 for a while.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. I'm like, all right, I'm up for that. So those things were interesting. Playing at the Providence Civic Center in a Christmas tournament was great. I hadn't played there before. Playing Cheney State, which was a nationally ranked team at the time, in the finals. So there were some cool things. I got to play against a kid that played at Notre Dame, Rich Branning, who played for Athletes in Action. He was a high school All-American from California. I'm not sure if he was an All-American in college, but he played for Digger Phelps. He played against UCLA. He was a really good player. And there were some relationships that come from some of those meetings. So there was some discussion at some point with that particular organization that after school, maybe I can play with them and travel the world. Again, It doesn't happen, but those things come out of that. So to answer your question directly, it was bumpy coming as far as transitioning over. Skill-wise, I got better. Physically, I got better until I got hurt. But I was still sort of able to find my way as trying to be an asset and trying to help. And, what started to come out of that was, the teachings I had through high school with Mr. Nabariga and Mr. Wilson about being a really good team player, being, trying to really access and accent my all-around ability, where I had that's where my asset, that's where my sense of positioning myself to be an asset for my teammates was being able to do a whole lot of things without hurting us. And I thought I performed well in those situations. We didn't have a very good team in the time, because what ended up happening was when my freshman class came in, the academic standards changed. So now we can't recruit guys. It's really hard. It was a weird thing that was going on with the administration at the time where, okay, what do we want to be? We had a big time program a year ago. Now we don't. We can't go recruit kids anymore. That could really help us as far as the program, because we had some pieces in place. And I thought myself included was one of those pieces. So everything changed like within, for me, within like 24 hours. You went from, we're talking with this kid, this guy's coming to visit. All of a sudden they're not coming to visit because they can't get into school. And this is way back when, where they were just, the curriculum was a business school. And, we're playing in the Northeast 10. Tough conference. Stonehill, Springfield, Bentley, Assumption, those schools all had really good programs. And so you had to be ready every single night. And it was sort of guard-centric. There wasn't a lot of big guys, but so you knew as me as a guard, you were going to be up against it with some pretty good players. And we played against some, All-Americans at the time. A couple of kids that played at Bishop Hendricken, 78, 79, go to Stonehill. One of those guys was drafted by the Celtics. So there were good players in that conference, and you had to be ready to play. And so that transition for me was, okay, we have to get better pretty quick. We have to be able to kind of survive when you get isolated in certain situations, defensively or offensively. What can you do to take advantage of some of those situations? So it was, again, a little troublesome for me. I was surprised that took place, but that's sort of where it was.
It's another chapter in your life. And during all those chapters in your life, you have some great conversations. And a lot of them are going to be in your memoir, in your book. I like to of all the time that you've been a basketball fan, basketball player, um, let's talk about a conversation around a round table. Michael, Semiao, and four others. Who would be in that table with you to have that conversation?
I haven't thought of this.
Strictly basketball.
Strictly basketball, and not about me, just basketball.
Yep, male or female, male and female,
Male and female.
or it doesn't. It's either or. You know.
I will include. I would think. I would have to include. I think Red Auerbach is probably at that table.
Mm-hmm. And why?
Well, just his ability to see the big picture at certain levels, and not be afraid to do certain things and make certain decisions that he made.
Awesome.
And I, just having that ear and having that level of advice would have been pretty cool to have. Awesome. And I'm going to go old school on some of this, but I would have liked to have at that table. I would love to have Bill Russell at that table.
Okay, cool.
Reason why is, again, his experience coming forward as a player, as a person, in just, again, having that ear and having that ability to get advice, listen to his story, and how does some of those experiences apply to mine? Maybe they don't, but just having that opportunity to spend time with that person, to maybe call that person your friend. How would you not have that? How would you not want that? One of them would have to be my dad. Okay. One, because there's some similarities to what Auerbach does and my father's ability to see the big picture and kind of put me in positions to hopefully succeed and just experience certain things. My dad had that ability business-wise. He had that ability personally with me. And, my dad was the most honest critic I had, and and his ability to communicate to me, which was sometimes frustrating, and sometimes we would argue, and sometimes we'd be mad at each other. But I could see where it would just rub off on me as far as what he saw and how I started to interpret myself. And to be very honest, some of those conversations were difficult on other people around me that didn't understand the dynamic. And we're not perfect, right? We sort of bump heads on things. But having him at that table to listen and absorb what was taking place with those particular men, and I think that's important to have him there, just because of his experiences and being able to see things. And my dad was not, the basketball side is one thing, but my dad could see things that, again, some sort of, again, being able to see the big picture on world events, personal things that were taking place, directly things with me on where he saw me and how he saw me, which was different, obviously, than somebody else because she was much closer to that. The fourth person, who would that be?
Don't have to be anybody, you could say that.
I don't know who that fourth person would be.
Yeah.
I have some personal things that might be, but they're not basketball things, and it's sort of family things. Yeah. And, and the takeaway is, and again, not to kind of go down my family thing, but the fourth person might be my mom, who, again, is the counter to my dad, right? My dad is handling the basketball stuff, handling the athletic stuff. And my mom, who sort of looked at it as, all right, I need to take care of him in a different way. And that is making sure socially that I'm not falling behind, that I'm involved with certain things and trying to be that advocate for those things. And, the sort of the healthcare side of, okay, we've got injuries, we've got illness. What are we doing with, again, as her son and taking care of her son. But her perspective on things was pretty interesting, where, she would see things, she would hear things that impacted me in the long run. Right? Mm-hmm. Who I was associating with, who she saw, who she not so much accepted, but who she thought would be supportive of me as time went on. And again, being her mom, right? So she's sort of I'm guarding the gate as
Yep.
far as who's getting close and who's not. And so there again, these weren't perfect relationships, but those were things that I sort of looked forward to and relied on as time went on. And there, as I mentioned to you in the past, we were sort of learning on the fly on all of this because we hadn't expected this. We didn't know this. And it was very difficult to find someone to reach out to say, okay, you had success. What did it look like? And from my view, again, it was obviously brand new. And I've told you that I've mentioned that story to you about certain things that happened where, again, not to be overly dramatic, but certain things happen where your life changes.
Yeah.
And you don't know it. You don't know till you might know that it's going to change, but you don't realize how deep it goes. And that was very eye-opening to all of us. And it was eye-opening to me that there's some footprints or fingerprints to this that go on for, years that you just don't see coming. And that's the majority of some of the hard stuff that I had to write. And they're obviously there throughout as far as what we were trying to not just maintain it, trying to be normal people, trying to go through your life, trying to, you're a good student, good kid, all those things where I just mentioned to my wife today, I said, I don't know of anybody in Massachusetts, and I'm not close enough to this. And again, I am not patting myself on the back, but I'm going to Fairhaven High School. I've had 3 or 4 major articles in our newspaper, Charlie.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody that had that.
Yeah.
And so, there's as I just said to her this afternoon, I said, there was a level of baggage that was associated with me, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know who had that. And it's just, again, it was just one of those things where it just sort of happens. But that's my story. That's part of it. And I don't know who has any impact to that. I have no idea who read these things. I just know that there was some sort of other life to that situation that I had not anticipated, and just trying to process that and deal with that.
Very nice. I like that. Let's see. All right, this one's going to put you on the spot, on the hot seat, right?
Okay.
You got to trade away one of your teammates.
Oh.
For another teammate. You got to trade away one of your teammates. And which rival would you trade them for? What person?
All right, what school are we talking about?
And it's from we'll go with Fairhaven, right?
All right, which year?
I'm gonna go junior year.
Okay.
All right, so junior year team, and you have this unbelievable test to put on yourself, and you got to trade one of your teammates for another basketball player elsewhere. Who would you trade, and who would that person be on your team?
So, challenge my junior year at Fairhaven High School. We finished 12-8, 2 games away from making the state tournament. Our captain broke his hand 3rd or 4th game of the season, comes back late in the season. We have a win over New Bedford High School when he comes back in double overtime at our place.
Very nice.
Yeah, so we had like a 4 or 5 game winning streak at the beginning of the season, and we had a 4 or 5 game winning streak at the end. So when he was there, we were whole. We needed 2 more wins to get to the tournament. And that was one of the disappointing things with that season, is that didn't happen. So my backcourt teammate, who is still a friend of mine, and I hope he doesn't take this personally, and he probably will, and I'll probably hear from this, which is the coach's son, right? So that's Kyle Wilson.
Okay.
To put us over the hump, we would need another player, right? Bobby Garnett has a really good year. I have an okay year, but we needed more to get 2 more wins.
Yeah.
I hope if I could, and again, nothing against Kyle, I would have liked to have traded him to New Bedford High School for Mark Roby.
Okay.
I think that puts us over the hump.
All right.
Because
Why?
Mark could really play,
All
and
right.
Mark did not need the ball in his hands.
Okay.
He could get open, he could get his own shot, and Mark could really play. Mark could play on both ends, and he's another buddies teammate that I had for years. Mark and I go back to Camp Massasoit when we were little guys running around at that camp. So that's the trade I would make. And Kyle's going to hate me for that, but I apologize right up front, Kyle. Nothing personal, but that was the question that was put in front of me.
That's all right. We'll give a Kyle an opportunity to come on a Really Charlie podcast and trade one of his teammates.
Now, part of the issue is that with that season is that 78 team, there's 7 of us that are getting playing time when we go to the state finals. 5 of those players leave, plus 2 of the bench players who were in practice leave. So there was a lot of seniors on that team, and now they got to get replaced by other players who have no varsity experience at all. Our captain was Steve Lombardo. He broke his hand. He and I were the only 2 remaining from that 78 team. Everybody else playing JV basketball now has to play varsity. So that transition is hard. I think I may have mentioned that to you in the past. That's a hard transition. All of a sudden, now you have to play. And we don't have much of a bench, as we would not have much of a bench in that school just because of the population and the town size. So that was hard. So again, that's sort of the dynamic that existed, was those guys had to learn on the fly to play. And when Steven was there, we were really good. We were really good. When he wasn't there, we were just okay. We were barely 500. Actually, we were less than that. We were less than 500 while he wasn't there. And we tried. It was just a hard season to try to kind of overcome that injury, where you're taking out a starter who was our captain, who we looked to for some leadership at that point. And Steven could really play. Steven could do some things that we could not replace. So I think that trade sort of would make sense.
Good. Just kind of spice it up a little bit,
I'm sure I'm going to hear from him and some other people on this, but okay.
That's all right. That's all right. It's I'm pretty sure you can talk your way out of it.
Thanks,
yeah. I am. We go pretty good, decent way back, and I'm so glad that you and I have connected, because it became a whole lot more than I expected, and the reason being is, it's got a lot to do with you and your conversation, your genuineness, loyalty to everything that I do. And I just want to tell you, you're going to get it tenfold from me when it comes to your book and putting it out there. Can't wait to read it. I truly, like I said, just the stories you have gave me bits and pieces of, man, a Hoosier movie would be nice, but courts of reflection. We want to.
So one other thing before we take off, I have in some level of a framework of a screenplay of this.
Oh, awesome.
And it's interesting because it's a take on what I struggled with as far as writing certain things. And it is me trying to write and my younger self sort of prodding me along to write it and tell the right story, and having the difficulties that I've expressed of trying to write those things. So it's an interesting spin that I've sort of been able to put on this. I'm not going there until I finish what I need to finish to get the memoir published, but I do have a framework for it. I've even gone down the road as far as trying to understand where, if I could develop it to some extent, who would I submit it to, and those kinds of things. I've gone down that road to a certain extent. And I'm just one other thing. These little side things that I get involved in, Charlie, and I'm sure, I don't know if you go through the same type of process, but that going down that road and doing certain things, playing with a screenplay, playing with this, playing with the prequel, has created this other piece in my head where it sparks some level of creativity that allows me to kind of go back to the memoir if I've stepped away for a bit for whatever reason, to kind of go back to it. So it creates and establishes that motivation to go back where I didn't anticipate that. And there's some piece in my head that says, well, you're overly distracted for some things, and that tends to be my personality sometimes. But that does happen where I've gone down and I spent some time with the screenplay of it. If I've spent some time on other writings that aren't fitting into the book and what to do with those things, and spending time there, it really creates that energy and that focus to kind of come back to the memoir and finish what I'm supposed to be doing in the first place. So I don't know if you had that kind of spark too, where you get distracted, it hits some other level in your brain as far as what it does, and it starts to kind of circulate that motivation in your brain as far as what to do, and kind of come back and be focused on those things. It's funny because I did something not too long ago and I went through it pretty quickly. And my wife's response was, well, you've been away from it for a little while, so your eyes are much fresher. I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And so it's that weird game you play.
That old saying, step away, come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you did that. Everyone, this is the book, Courts of Reflection, a memoir, Michael Semiao. This is I just want you to get a good picture of that book cover, and that way it's on the screen. Michael, you mentioned about screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
There is and just want to let you know that there is a small, can't think of the name of it, but you could take pieces of that screenplay and then write it all up and have people play the roles. It's kind of script in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they do it at the Whaling Museum.
Oh.
Once a year. And I can't think of the name of it. But if you want to test your screenplay in front of an audience, a live audience, even if it's part of it,
Mm-hmm.
not all of it. I forget how long it's going to be. They have their own different guidelines, and I'm going to get that to you this week, by this weekend. I just can't think of the name of it, and maybe perhaps you can take your screenplay and kind of act that out, just in front of a live audience, and you get time to practice and prepare for it, and it's a few hundred people right at the Whaling Museum sitting there watching.
Okay.
And but I want to get that to you because I think that would be something that it just would test it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Test it, and then you're going to get some feedback from it at the end with the audience or other people that are doing their own screenplay that day. So I'll get that to you. I have to talk to Russell Ramus. He knows the name of it, and I just keep I just can't think of it right now. All right, Michael, we are definitely going to put this podcast to an end, but I also want to give you an invite to come back on, and then when we all have book in hand, and we're going to talk about the book again. So please hold a slot for me so we can talk about it, and everything you need from me to kind of help you out along the way. You can just reach out and call me, and I can't wait to help out with your book before it actually is published. So send me all that material, what you want to do, what you want me to do, and I'll participate until I get it done for you.
Yeah, that'll be, like I said, that'll be August. I'm sort of
okay
planning that. And give enough, I know it's during the summer and I know it's a little bit distracting, but I'm giving that enough time where I can get some feedback on all of this and make those adjustments based on the feedback. And and I'm looking forward to that. And it's something I have to grow some thick skin on some of this because I'm still very thin, very thin skinned on
Yeah.
some of the feedback and some of the discussion. And some of that's in my own house, which is just weird that I still have this, but I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, this summer, and then kind of go down the line as far as, if I can do it sooner, if I can get, I'm not going to do the arc sooner, but if I can get the feedback back to me in some reasonable amount of time, maybe I can do the publishing sooner, but I'm still kind of looking at December-ish
Okay.
and getting that done. Then we'll have the new year to kind of go through all of that and hopefully just spend that time marketing like crazy and promoting and doing other things with this, which I'm looking forward to, because I am this side of me in my brain and my being at this point is I would just like to get this done. And I know there are some things I put in front of me, as I said earlier, to get it done. I just need to get it done. And I want to get it done. I'm one side of me is scared to death to tell this story. And the other side of me is I want people to see it. I want people to see it and understand it and hopefully have some appreciation for it.
Of course. I appreciate all your time, any time that you give me. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait. And I've been saying that along the way.
I know.
Uh-huh. Hey, here's another fabulous author right here. Just joined us, Mona Bode. She is.
Oh, that's right. I listened to her last podcast. That's right.
Amazing person. Amazing creator. From books to music to poetry. It just goes on and on. And she's nonstop. And her creative mind is definitely something that I appreciate, just like you, Michael. I want to say hello to Jack. I seen you on and Marvin. Thanks for the comment, saying hello to Michael and myself. And everybody on Facebook and LinkedIn, please, and YouTube, please continue to listen, add comments. I really, truly appreciate it. And I have a podcast tomorrow night. But I'm gonna try to take this summer off, although there's some people that I have to get in. Like we're gonna talk about the Cape Verdean Parade in New Bedford, and so they got to come on, and there may be one more. But any recommendations, any kind of guest you want on the Really Charlie podcast, just get a hold of me. The podcast is Really Charlie Podcast. I mean, the email is Really Charlie Podcast at gmail.com. And Rita says, nice job. So look at that. Rita, I want to say that your book is amazing. And since you're such a chicken shit, you don't want to come on a Really Charlie podcast. I'm gonna take the book and I'm gonna make it myself, but Rita, please continue with that.
By the way, Charlie, I can hear chuckling in the other room.
Yeah. I love her. I gotta give her a high five because she has been that voice in the house to keep you going. And I really truly want to say thank you, Rita, for helping out my friend, your other half. And I know we're all gonna smile when it's all done. Michael, please get a hold of me anytime, any place, and this will be on Spotify also within the next 20 minutes, and just to let you know that it's on there also.
Okay, cool. Charlie, thank you very much. Thanks for your support and being my friend. That's been very nice. You've made it very easy. You talked about, that you're surprised or welcoming that it's been more. You've made it very easy. Just that you're a very stand-up guy, and it's been nice getting involved with you and being involved with your circle, and sharing your life and made it very comfortable for me to share mine. And we kind of go back and forth with some people that we know that are, we have in our lives together. So that's been pretty cool. And so again, you've made it very easy. So thank you.
And thank you. You're one of the most outstanding people that I know. And I'm truly, you got me for a lifetime. And you need anything, I'm there.
All right, Charlie. Thank you. Same for me.
Yeah. And once I take a trip up that way, supposed to take a train ride soon. And
Hmm.
so,
I thought I had you coming up here when New Bedford High School was going to play North Andover.
hmm, and I didn't go.
I was like, well, I sort of lost track of that because I
Yeah,
a lot going on at that time trying to pay attention to all the high school stuff that was happening. And when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, that's right, they're playing up here.
yeah.
And that school is 10 minutes away.
Wow.
We use their facilities between tennis courts and the track every now and again. It's actually a nice facility. The gym is huge. It's a giant
Yeah.
gym. So yeah, I thought I had you.
I'd like to go up that way twice before August. I will definitely be there at the Boston Jazz Festival,
Okay.
sitting there enjoying the music. I have a friend from New Jersey that will be playing on the stage. I actually have two friends that will be playing, so I will be up there hanging out. And don't know if the missus is going, but I'm definitely going, and I can't wait. Cannot miss this. One of the friends plays at Carnegie Hall every single year.
Wow.
So I will not miss that in my own backyard. I will not miss her again.
We definitely have to check that box because this
Yeah.
box has not been checked for a while, and
Hmm.
we've not been in the same room. We have not been in the same space.
True.
So we definitely need to check that box somehow.
Yeah.
I don't have off the top of my head have any plans to head to New Bedford, but that doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
we can connect offline and try to figure something out at some point. Let's do that.
Exactly. I promise you that. Um. All right. Give give Rita a big hug for me, like a good 10-second hug. I appreciate it, and I'm not flirting with her. Just you just give her a hug, right? Give her a big hug for me.
I will I will do
All
that.
right.
All right, Charlie.
Love you, bro. Take
Thank you.
care.
Okay.
Have a great
Bye.
day. All right. Great night, rather.
You too.
All right. All right, everyone. That was my guest, and Michael is just amazing. He's just I can't wait until the book comes out. Um, this is the prequel to it, um, and it's gonna get out of focus because of my settings on my podcast. But the book is amazing. But Courts of Reflection is definitely going to be, in my opinion, a bestseller. If it gets marketed right, it's definitely going to be a bestseller. Um, he's just the stories are amazing, and can't wait. All right, y'all. Thank you much. We will be back on the podcast tomorrow with I'll be on with Marvin Speller, Coach and 100. We will be on our podcast. Sometimes you have to lose yourself, and it talks about love and grief. And we will be on at 6 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. Please join us. We are on every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes you got to make some adjustments, whether it's a board meeting I have to go to or Marvin has to do something. But we will be on tomorrow, and please join us. Real great. It's going to be a great show. Some great subjects to talk about, and can't wait. I'll see you tomorrow night, and God bless. And I love you guys so much. Thank you for making my podcast great.